James Gunn's DCU is upon us. We've got Superman. We're in the middle of Peacemaker Season 2. Creature Commandos came out a while ago. Next year we get Lanterns, Supergirl. But who else should direct a movie in James Gunn's DCU? We're doing another reaction time today, and that means we're looking at an article on After Superman. I want to see these 10 directors for James Gunn's DCU future. Let's react to it. While I'm talking, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. What do you think about this article? Likewise, who do you want to see direct a movie in James Gunn's DCU? And where appropriate, what project would you like to see them direct? With that said, let's just dive straight into this. Actually, one more thing before we dive into it. If you enjoy these types of videos, they are streamed live on Patreon. My patrons are the ones that recommend articles to me that lead to these videos being made. They are in the chat chiming in with their thoughts. Sometimes we have a whole extended conversation afterwards. If you want to support the channel, if you want to be a part of those live streams as well as my Q&As and my box office show, consider joining on Patreon. The information is down below. And let's get started with our article. First name up on the list, they have Guillermo del Toro for Justice League Dark. I feel like this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is actually something that has been murmurs about this for like 15 years. That they've been trying to get Guillermo del Toro to do Justice League Dark, and he has interests, but the timing's never been right, and he's had success doing different things. So it's never happened. What do I think of Guillermo del Toro doing Justice League Dark? They announced that. I'm all on board with it. Guillermo del Toro is one of these guys that has prestige level talent, nominations, Oscar wins, and also is a nerd at heart. Blade, Pacific Rim, Hellboy, of course, and then was supposed to do The Hobbit. Like, this is a guy that is just as happy making nerd films as he is making prestige films. And he goes towards the gothic, the weird. So the idea of him being the person to do Justice League Dark, that could be very cool if that were to ever happen. And like I said, this is one of the ones that, like, I feel like it's actually on the table and has been discussed. Edgar Wright and their pitch was Plastic Man. Now, of course, Edgar Wright very infamously was attached to Ant-Man for 10 years. Before the MCU even existed, he had ties to Ant-Man. And then because the MCU grew and kind of formed its own voice, but Edgar Wright was still Edgar Wright, and Edgar Wright makes Edgar Wright movies, he was no longer the right person. He does not want to make an MCU film. He wants to make an Edgar Wright film in the MCU, and they want someone that makes one of their movies. And so it fell through. But this is a guy that does love comic books, loves nerd culture, has a very distinct, interesting style, and very much it would apply to a comic book movie. Do I want Plastic Man? I mean, I don't, like, if we're going to let Edgar Wright do something, let's let him do something that has more mainstream appeal. Like, Edgar Wright's one of these guys that makes movies that I think could be very broadly accessible, but he hasn't gotten his big, broadly accessible franchise yet. My son's having a fun time out in the hallway shouting. Don't know what that was about, or if you guys could hear it, but it's just shouting on the other side of that door. Anyway, give him something more mainstream. Like, don't, like, it doesn't, I don't know that he's the right guy to do super mainstream Superman or something like that, but it doesn't have to be freaking Plastic Man. Like, we don't have to go for the goofiest thing. He is known for sending up genres. Of course, that's what he's very famous for. But he sends them up as a master of the genre. He makes a great film in the genre while also sending it up. so you can do something besides that. Maybe I'd go, there's a lot of chatter of maybe Glenn Powell for Booster Gold. He's doing a movie with Glenn Powell, maybe Booster Gold, but in Booster Gold feels a little bit more mainstream than Plastic Man without being full-blown, you know, like I said, the A-list. I don't know, maybe there's something there. But Edgar Wright, I'd be all for it. Plastic Man, that's a weird pick. Today's video is brought to you by HelloFresh. Fall is almost here. That means cooler nights, craving heartier meals, and wanting something warm and satisfying. This season, HelloFresh has had a massive upgrade with their biggest menu yet. HelloFresh has doubled their menu. That means you can choose from 100 options each week. Likewise, you can feel great because their menu is even healthier with high protein and veggie-packed recipes. Here's the part that I love. You can get steak and seafood delivered to your door every week, no extra cost. There's 3 times more seafood on the menu now at no extra cost. I'm not a cook, not a chef. They deliver the exact ingredients in the right proportions with clear directions on how to make these delicious meals. Therefore, even someone like me that does not know what they're doing is able to cook an amazing meal. The best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/SeanChandler10FM now to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life. 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's HelloFresh.com/SeanChandler10FM to get 10 free meals plus free item for life. Gareth Edwards for Deathstroke. This is a bit of an odd one for me. I feel like they got the wrong Gareth. There's Gareth Edwards and Gareth Evans. I always get them confused because, well, for the obvious reasons. I don't have to explain to you the confusion there, but they also broke out on the scene as interesting directors at the same point in time. One of them for Godzilla, one of them for The Raid. Now, who do I want to direct Deathstroke? Well, if you got the director of The Raid, that'd be awesome. The guy that is good at like big scope, visual effects, just amazing imagery. That's not the Deathstroke guy. Like, Gareth, like, I don't know. I don't have an idea of what I want Gareth Edwards. I don't know what I would pick for him to do in the world of DC, but I could see it. Like, I like him as a director. And I just think he needs to be tied to stronger scripts. But visually, it's a visual medium. His ability to have scope, size, to do visual effects on a budget, not going over budget, but knowing how to do it right. He's great, but not for Deathstroke. Like, everything that I think he's awesome at, it's not Deathstroke. The other guy, however, that did The Raid with a name very similar, that guy for Deathstroke, let's do it. That's a 2 for 1 right there. This is the cheap, easy one. Chad Stahelski, John Wick guy for Green Arrow. I wouldn't go Green Arrow. I would go, though I wouldn't oppose, like, they announced this as a thing that's happening. I'm not, I'm cheering more than anybody. I'm in my yard I bought fireworks for the 4th of July, and we went out to the lake house outside of the city, and then it rained and Texas flooded, so we had to flee before we could fire off our fireworks. I've got a garage full of fireworks. They announced he's doing Green Arrow. I'm going to go to jail firing off all of my fireworks in October. That excited. Burned my house down on accident, shooting down off these fireworks in the middle of a drought. I would go Nightwing, though. I'd go Nightwing. I think the Dick Grayson is horribly underserved in movies. That the only live action Dick Grayson that we've had in the modern era of comic book movies, I guess it's not even the modern era, but it would be Batman and Robin, which Chris O'Donnell, this is, bat nipples, not it. And then before that, it's Burt Ward in the 60s, which is really just an extension of a TV show. But martial artist, acrobatic, very interesting connections to Batman that explores Batman in a new way, the Bat family, the grown-up Dick Grayson as Nightwing, and like this guy raised by Bruce Wayne very flawed father, but also the guy that shaped him into who he is. That's really interesting with the action from the John Wick movies. That's where I'd go but at the same time, you announce him doing Green Arrow, like pretty much whatever you announce that he's directing that's in the world of action, where you go like, oh, I'd love to see Green Arrow with John Wick action. Oh, I'd love to see anything like that. I'm going to be very excited about it. And that's why I'm excited for his Highlander movie if they ever shoot this thing. Because it's like, what is he going to do with swordplay? I just want to see it. This is a weird one. Number 5, Shane Black, Blue Beetle, and Booster Gold. I guess where they're going with this one, Shane Black, very famous for his banter, rapport between characters. And, of course, going back to Lethal Weapon, but other films, like he just writes witty dialogue, subversive action movies. So I guess the idea isn't Blue Beetle, it's Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. You're doing the superhero buddy cop. All right, I see it now. And somewhat in that he did Iron Man 3. Blue Beetle is very different characters, but you can see the similarities. Person is in a robot suit, plus buddy movie. I don't really see this one. Perhaps it's just I have too much of the Blue Beetle movie we already have, and I just don't see Shane Black as the guy. And they've, like, James Gunn has said Blue Beetle's the first hero of the DCU, but this is not the first movie. Implication being Blue Beetle moves over. I just don't see Zhao as a Shane Black character. Like I don't see that version being in the Shane Black sense. Some of it is even he makes movies with like dudes in their 40s and stuff, like grown men bantering. And this is like, that was a movie about a family. And I guess the idea here would be older. I just don't see this one. My brain, when I think Shane Black doing DC, I could see something really interesting there that you could do. But I'm going to Gotham. Like, you think through the world of Gotham, very famous police force. What do you play around with that? And that's where my brain gravitates toward with Shane Black. Number 6, Chloe Zhao, Wonder Woman. So obviously, when she made Eternals, her interest was in making a DC movie. Overtly so. Her characters feel like DC characters. It had the gravitas of a DC movie. So the idea of her making an actual DC movie, I suppose, does make sense. But just coming from what is my experience with the one comic book movie that she's made, I didn't like it. Don't think it worked. My initial thought is just kind of nixing it on that level. That transition from small indie drama to big blockbuster, it didn't work for her. And then what was the one with the lady driving in the van that won the awards and everything? No Man Land. I didn't really like it. I didn't connect with it. So my experience thus far, I just don't see it. Like, I don't see it. Not for me. She's got a new movie coming out. Maybe it'll win me over. There's other reasons beyond the direction that I had issues with Eternals. So there could be something else there, but thus far, I'm not seeing this one at all. But I understand why it's on the list. Guy Ritchie's The Authority. This is interesting. So I love Guy Ritchie, and honestly, like I've actually really enjoyed most everything that he's done for the last 6 years, starting with Aladdin. I'm a big Aladdin fan, and so much of what he's done, I've really enjoyed recently. He's been very prolific. I don't know anything about The Authority, so I can't chime in on that. And one of my kind of hot takes is that I actually really enjoyed Birds of Prey. Obviously a lot of people really didn't like it. And the reason I liked Birds of Prey, the phrasing I used is, it feels like a Guy Ritchie DC story. Non-linear storytelling, chaotic characters, street level crime, banter. Felt like a Guy Ritchie movie to me. So once again, The Authority feels like a weird mismatch. I don't get it. Because I just don't know what The Authority is, and everything I know about The Authority feels like, what? That feels weird. But the idea of a Guy Ritchie kind of street level crime, fun, chaotic story in the DCU makes a lot of sense to me. Because there was a movie that felt like that already, and I liked it more than most people. So you get the actual Guy Ritchie to do it, and don't do some of the stuff that stepped on other people's feet, and suddenly you get other people will get the movie that I got out of Birds of Prey. So once again, maybe it's this world of Gotham. There's a lot to play around with, explore. That's where my brain naturally goes because of Birds of Prey in this case. But there's a lot that you could do with Guy Ritchie's kind of energy and style. Greta Gerwig's Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. Pass on that. This feels like doubling down on the side of Birds of Prey that people rolled their eyes at. Like bringing Greta Gerwig's overt messaging about the way that she does female empowerment, doing Birds of Prey again, Harley Quinn's Birds of Prey again with Greta Gerwig is double. I mean, this almost feels like an overly obvious pick because it's copying what was done before, but what was done before was rejected by and large in the wrong direction to go. Kind of on both levels. Like, Birds of Prey is a thing in and of itself that's been around a long time that people enjoy, and it's not Harley Quinn. It's not starring Harley Quinn. And so it's like they sidelined Birds of Prey to make it a Harley Quinn movie, which was odd in and of itself. It wasn't really about the superhero team. It was about Harley, and in the background, the superhero team forms. Very peculiar thing to do and call it Birds of Prey. Very weird. And it's like they're doubling down on like all the wrong things about Birds of Prey. So, like maybe there's a Greta Gerwig thing to do, but like I don't see it. I haven't seen her. I don't just done action to like me even understand why she would be a good pick for this genre. But this, like I said, is doubling down on the wrong stuff. Dan Trachtenberg, Martian Manhunter, as someone that really enjoyed 10 Cloverfield Lane as like a pocket little thriller, and as someone that thought Prey was great, maybe the best Predator movie since the original one. Him doing a DC movie, I'm very interested in. Picking Martian Manhunter feels like, well, he did Aliens and Predator, and he did Aliens and Cloverfield, or whatever Cloverfield is. So how about he does Martian Manhunter, another alien? That feels like that kind of thinking that it feels kind of like a little bit too simplistic. It feels like fan casting rather than inspired picking. But Dan Trachtenberg, I think, could do something really cool. And what I like is keep the fact that his movies have been small. Like, I don't need every DCU movie to be $150, $200 million. Have some of them be smaller. They're smaller bets. They're not for everybody. They're not part of a grander narrative, but they exist in this world. And he's done really cool stuff with that. And maybe that's the direction to kind of go. I don't have the specific project in mind, but like Dan Trachtenberg doing something in DC, I go, oh, cool, that's fun. Final one on here, Steven Spielberg's Green Lantern. Steven Spielberg is my favorite director of all time, and he's never done a comic book movie, right? I like it. He hasn't stepped into that world. But he's done adventure, he's done sci-fi, he's done all this other stuff, but it's like he's the generation before. And then afterwards, comic book movies kind of took over for doing big popcorn movies that, he dominated for the 30 years before that. So he's never done one. Or maybe there's something there. Like just a side to it where I just go, by the time this movie would come out, he'd be 80 years old. And you're talking about a genre that plays to the young, and how much does he have on his finger on the pulse? Also, they're already doing Green Lantern. It's called Lanterns. Stars cousin Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre from Rebel Ridge. Very excited about that one. Like, everything about it. When they said it's going to be True Detective with lanterns, I was like, oh, cool. I'm down for that. And they announced those are the stars of it. I was like, oh, man, I'm so on board for this. But Steven Spielberg, you know, he's my favorite director. They announce him doing whatever comic book movie for anything. I get it. I would be on board with it just because I want to see what he's going to do because I'm such a big fan of him. At the same time, it doesn't feel inspired. It feels like, who's the big name that hasn't done this yet? That's what this feels like to me. And so I just don't, in that regard, I would love to see it because I love Spielberg. The specific actuality of it's not the most interesting of like, who all should do one of these movies? I'd much rather us find someone that's made like a really interesting film, smaller, and bring them over rather than who's the guy that's 80 that hasn't done a comic book movie yet. Alrighty, there's my reaction to their list. What directors do you want to see make a movie in James Gunn's DCU? I would love to hear your picks down below in the comment section. And keep talking movies and TV.